Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel where today it's another beautiful day and I just can't help but giving thanks for all of the opportunities that I've had, while at the same time feeling a little bit of concern that I haven't been able to share that with quite a few people. Now, the more we delve into let's call it a journey of well-being, some might call it delving into spirituality, some might call it believing, and some might even claim that to be saved is the achievement to aspire towards. Now, once someone becomes saved or grateful or blessed, what do they do after that point in time? So that's basically the conundrum, right? It's like, now that we're saved, what do we do? Now that we're making progress, what do we do? Especially in light of the circumstances where many people who aren't doing as well might continue to try to throw shade on and or express jealousy towards the person who's achieving. In my personal experience on this journey, even with closely associated people, I can go so far as to explain my achievements, trying to measure up to whatever objective it is that these characters need to hear in order to justify being in a relationship with me to begin with. What do I mean by that? In a lot less words, there are a lot of bigots, and bigotry is a powerful word. And if you look up the definition, the fact is that once we decide to believe in not associating with someone for some reason, we will find that anything that someone has produced and or been interested in might be meaningless to ourselves just as much as that person would be if we didn't give them any consideration. So as an example, 2 days ago, I reached out to a couple of loved ones and was trying to communicate with them about several topics, and I was left high and dry with no response. I want to, first of all, go so far as to apologize right now for coming across as stern and or upset when I perceive that maybe you yourself have not responded to an inquiry of mine. I've got to add to the apology, though. It is a true apology, and I would like to at least explain my perspective. From my perspective, when I try to discuss my achievements with most of the people in my circles, at this point, for some reason, many of the achievements are frowned upon and or not even responded to or about. And so because of this, I know that I'm being given the silent treatment. It's not a matter of if it's happening. There are absolutely people in my own segments who have given me the silent treatment, and among them are my own family, my own relatives. And so because of this, basically, I'm trying to explain a circumstance and say that I'm just, I'm making progress and I'm doing all the things that I've been blessed with the ability to do. Some people are constantly changing the circumstances around them, and I know that I've done that in the past myself. Lately, I've been taking advantage, quite frankly, of the tools that have been developed, which happen to allow me to succeed at greater and greater intervals. That's a good word. So all of these things that I'm saying, I'm trying to apologize to anyone who I've offended by maybe seeming to be a little bit, what was the word? Vicious? Not vicious. A little bit, let's just say that some of the things that I say are probably able to come across as harsh to someone who feels criticism very deeply. And I'm not trying to criticize, I'm more trying to point out an observation that if someone is not answering my question, it's either on purpose or by accident. If it's by accident, that means that there could be a possibility that we're not paying attention enough to understand that we're overlooking some things. If it's on purpose, well, we might want to look in the mirror and try to figure out how would we respond to ourselves if it was ourselves in the circumstance of the person who we are judging so critically. So for me, just as an example, I've made many videos here where I've talked about going without, and I have gone without, and going without did allow me to achieve even more than I've done in my past, and even miraculous changes such as restoring my blood pressure to normal. After resuming some of these ways of eating certain things while at the same time working out at my new baseline weight, my new current baseline weight, my progress has been exceptional. And because I'm making exceptional progress, I feel a lot better, a lot different from how I felt before, how I treated even myself. So how I treat others is a direct reflection of how I treat myself. So a lot of people who care for themselves physically, they might treat other people well in certain regards, but maybe emotionally, we're not treating ourselves as well as we need to. Maybe some of us have been treating ourselves well emotionally, and maybe physically, we hadn't been treating ourselves the same way that we would if we recognized just how detrimental it is to subscribe to the old ways of continuing to try and take prescriptions to alleviate symptoms of actual illness. So there are a lot of people ill, even watching this video, even maybe in many regards presenting videos, there are a lot of ill people, and we have the opportunity to help one another heal. So in order to do that, there's got to be a discussion that includes truth. Now, recently I watched a show that had a character who talked a lot about a dark passenger, and the dark passenger was basically the truth that couldn't be set free because there were secrets associated with this dark passenger or an alternate ego that someone claimed to have had. The alternate ego, the alternate hidden secret personas that many of us have are opportunities. They're opportunities for healing. The things that we're the most embarrassed about, that we get the most distraught at, are usually the things that cause us to lash out at the very person right next to us or even right in front of us, because we have a spirit of disease. And that disease, it doesn't matter how far we slow jog in any direction, we're going to continue to have that disease. So as I've begun to exercise and associate certain things across the board, like the wording of exorcism and exercising our demons, as I've started to do this, I've also started to notice that I've had to recapture many of these presentations because they were a little harsh. They were a little harsh because that's how I would treat myself in the past, to try to drive myself to become a better person for me and for you. So as we try to communicate with one another to help each other to improve the version of ourselves that we are for one another, maybe we really just need to focus on doing that for ourselves primarily so that we can do it for others. I have in my proximity the ability to soak in a hot bath, which is definitely quite the use of water. Excessive even. That's the way this whole place was built at this point in time. And the reason I was placed here, possibly besides showing that there is still the opportunity to indulge in lavish things despite the lack of reasonable rainfall for all. I mean, think about all the places that got hit with the storms they got hit with and how much rainfall fell on these places, while other places suffered tremendously from having the opposite, no rainfall. And then imagine the fires and the devastation and all of the things that are basically related to basic use like this. So a lot of people will look at me saying these things, look at the crazy devices and the tools that I've mentioned that I've used to further my progress, and they're going to look at it as excessive. How did they do this? How did they do this when they don't even do the same kind, they didn't follow the same kind of path as I'm following right now to do what I'm doing? That's a judgment. And that judgment is possibly true from one perspective. But when you look at another perspective and recognize that a lot of people who have the spirit of disease do have heart trouble, like real heart trouble. When you look at that and recognize all of the medical expenditures that occur and also how those expenditures were distributed pretty much down to the next generations, maybe we can recognize that we're all participating in this circumstance, whether we've retired or not. And a lot of people who are retired are probably the main segment of persons that I'm normally having plenty of difficulties having any discussion with. It's a lot easier to describe things and have a conversation with a child because the judgment values haven't been plugged in so severely. It's not until later in life when you have something like your father burns down the house of your grandparents that eventually would have been passed down to you. It's not until that happens and then the rest of your dad's family robs your dad and then basically leaves your dad with essentially a trailer and in his, golden years, and takes money, profiteers from the circumstance of this person who burned down their house, who happened to be on methamphetamines and who somehow was coerced into signing paperwork, by the way. When you have something like that, that can cause different levels of trauma, even different from being thrown headfirst into a tub when you're still a toddler just because you wet your Pampers. There are all kinds of things that I'm talking about from my perspective that could be causing you anxiety, or you might be associating this story of perceived anxiety with some anxiety that you're currently holding on to. And so as I'm sitting in these hot springs, whether it's a hot spring right here in my own premises or a hot spring in a remote location, as I'm sitting here, basically recovering from some of the work that I'm doing, the extra work that I'm having to do to persist among all of the illness. As I'm doing all of these things, I'd like to present the opportunity for you also to accept my apology and forgive the trespasses that I've levied against you, just as I've forgiven the trespasses that you've levied against me. Now, forgiveness is one thing, and then also if the actions continue to occur over and over, it's my right to point out in observation that I am actively reaching out to communicate with my own friends and family and being treated with the silent treatment, being overlooked and disregarded, like as if someone can't even understand what I'm saying because it doesn't make any sense. These are untrue statements when you take all of everything that has occurred into context and recognize there is the spirit of truth, and then there's everything else. So always test for the spirit of truth. Always live your dream. Do everything within your abilities to further glorify your own day in ways that help inspire you to glorify other people's days. That's really all there is to it. That in itself is art. That is focus. That is commitment. Because when you care about something, it's going to be in the forefront of your activities, always. So if you care about yourself, you probably would care to get in some basic, good, make you smile activities, probably together with loved ones. In the meantime, I hope that you've enjoyed all of these presentations on this channel. I hope that you recognize that I'm just doing what I can to try and have a conversation that is well overdue with my own groups. And so if anyone has any inspiring or otherwise information to share, please click on the comments area, enter the questions or comments, no matter whether they're related to this or not. And essentially, also consider that I'm wishing you an amazing day, an amazing night, an amazing week, an amazing weekend, an amazing opportunity. Wherever we are, there are opportunities. Even if we look on the ground as we go on our basic walks, there are going to be things that are long forgotten even. There are going to be animals that we can enjoy and appreciate from a new perspective without fear. And more than that, there are going to be other people sharing those trails with us, sharing those trials with us. And so the more we can help one another to overcome the obstacles, the more we can help one another to achieve the best versions of ourselves so that we can help other people raise the vibrational level of energy to positivity instead of just constant overlooking and responding in bigoted ways, one-sided, gaslighting ways that never really accomplish anything. That's just my thoughts. I know that we have the opportunity to vote for some other elected official to attempt to do something, supposedly, but the main thing is we still need to really tend to ourselves and focus more on glorifying what we were able to glorify based on our current emotional maturity. Until next time, thanks again for subscribing. Peace, love, and all that old school stuff.